everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios, another edition of YBMcast with Matt and Brian. And today we got on the show, as always, our good buddy from Prep Baseball Report, Kevin Moulder. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're doing good.
Keeping busy,
good.
Right?
Everybody's good. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's good.
Marching toward March. Everybody's getting ready for baseball. That's the goal, right? It's time to start the winter programs. We got our winter workout tour coming up. You got some great stuff coming up in February out at the Sports Barn. You got you got a bunch of stuff going on around the state, Kevin. A lot of individuals. You got one going on with Midland. You got a scout day with Midland. Got a scout day, I think, with the Tigers, Rawlings Tigers. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think you're working on one down in the Southwest too, and in Kansas City, correct?
Yes, we try to touch all the parts of the state. I got one in Kennett too, down in the Boot Heel. So we're getting to most of the corners of the state, I would say.
That's covering a lot of ground. It's covering a lot of athletes too, right?
Yeah. That's the goal, to kind of capture as much as I can. And, they're obviously St. Louis and Kansas City are where your major populations are. But there are some really good players, down in Springfield and down in Kennett, as we saw last spring with them capturing the state championship. So it's good to get out and see some of the less populated parts of the state as well, because they have some really good players.
Very good. Matt, you guys are getting rolling, right?
Yeah, our younger guys have started. The older guys they've been at it for they started before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, everything's moving.
High gear.
It's not
quite, right?
Yeah, not yet. You've got a week or two in, so
yeah. So
you just got to tell the people that their first practice isn't their only practice. They've got 12 weeks in it, so let's slow things down a little bit.
Take it in there.
Yeah. You're not going outside next weekend, buddy. Let's calm her down. It's still 25 degrees outside.
Exactly, and hopefully it'll be a good summer. We're working toward it. Hey, guys, always YBMcast powered by Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Make sure you get your team registered. Matt's got an invitational with Game 7 this year. Get your team in there. I saw you got some teams getting in there.
It's not a fundraiser for us, by the way.
No,
Bless you, Kevin. It's not a fundraiser for us, by the way.
It's just a tournament.
Just a tournament, yeah.
Just a tournament.
We don't get anything out of that besides just helping Game 7 and changing the name and putting all the teams in it. So.
There you go. I love that stuff. We got the Elite Invitational with YBM in June as well. So got a lot of stuff going on. There's going to be some great PBR tournaments I know Kevin's got going on. So a lot of stuff happening. We're ready to go. It's baseball time. And today we're going to start with we're in the recruiting process, and it's always interesting to see as we're moving into these things. We're going to talk about measurables because I think it's a very interesting topic. I think it's one that's really misunderstood a lot of times, especially, no offense, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but by parents, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, by parents or by kids, by anybody that doesn't understand what the numbers actually mean and the numbers that you need to be at to play at a certain level.
Very good. And that's the thing. And Kevin, we've always talked about, from Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, JUCO baseball, you have players from the freshman level to the senior level. They're all in different states of growth, maturity, physical maturity, and all those things. So it becomes a very difficult process to put these kids in a ranking, yeah?
Definitely, yeah. And obviously, they don't all grow and gain their strength at the same rate and time. So that can be a great challenge, and is one of the greatest challenges is, how do you rank the kid that's fully developed, that's a freshman, versus the kid that's 6'2", 148 pounds, and has high skill, but just doesn't have strength yet. That's a freshman, So there is an art to it, and some projection.
Absolutely. And so we're going to start off, we're going to take the scope of hitting today, and we're talking about measurables and whatnot. Let's talk first technology. We've been talking about this within hitting anyway, on some of our other podcasts. And, the art of hitting is difficult anyway. Baseball, in my opinion, hitting a baseball is probably one of the most, if not the hardest thing to do in sport.
Well, for me, it'd be hitting a golf ball, but yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, I think it's a similar process, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. Hitting a golf ball
and that
straight.
doesn't even move.
I like that. I'm with you there, because my handicap is hacker.
I play scrambles for a reason.
Exactly. There you go. So when we're talking about technology, what are we talking about when it comes to hitting? What's involved there, Kevin?
So that's one of one of the things we provide at a lot of our like our main events, I would say, that we host. So we use a couple of things. We have TrackBand, which is in all the big league stadiums and minor league stadiums, and for that matter, a lot of the Power 5 colleges now. So that collects data, and then we have blast motion sensors for the hitters that get connected to the end of their bats or the knob of their bat, actually. And that tracks things like bat speed and bat path and angle, attack angle, and things of that nature. Stuff that you can see with your eye, but to a trained eye, but you can't measure. You need those measurements. You can't just see all the information with your eye. Matt could tell you whether a kid has quick bat speed or not, but he couldn't break down probably down to the degree on an attack angle or how fast the hands are versus how fast the bat is, things like that are super technical that you need the technology for. So that's where it's like an aid to the coaches or scouts. Yes, you can see bat speed, and yes, you can see if he's uphill or downhill or flat bat, but this kind of takes it to another level and helps us not only evaluate the kid, but also helps kids improve their game because they kind of learn where they're deficient, where they're strong, and can work on improving in those areas.
I agree with him 100%. The eye test is there for somebody that, if you know baseball and you know the difference in level of hitters, but getting technology, it's good to get the numbers like he discussed.
I remember, and this goes to something I thought was interesting. We did a tour stop with you guys a couple of years ago, and it was interesting. You were using some stuff that it wasn't really in the sense, I guess, of technology as far as computers and things like that. But you were using a particular band, and it was on the waist, and I mean, there was some interesting tools that you were using. I guess you could call it technology, right? In that respect, but it's really about dealing with mechanics, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. We use blast motion as well, but the difference is there's a lot of things that are out there that necessarily just aren't technically technology.
Right.
You take the old school flat glove pad that you work on to get the two hands to work on the two hands. Those things have been around forever and are still used all the time. The band thing, that's for the lower half, hips, feeling, the hips, and when you're swinging or you're throwing or whatever you're doing. The kicker with technology to me personally is, are we going to use it 3 years from now? Because so much stuff comes out that if you just continue to buy stuff as it comes out, A, you're spending a lot of money on, B, things that are then eventually collecting dust. because it's just like a computer or a TV. Next year, somebody's going to come out with that same model, and it's going to be 20 times better. The two things that I think that have actually stood the test of time for me personally are the blast motion, which Kevin uses, we use, and the Rapsodos, which TrackMan is the same thing, right? Does Rapsodo own TrackMan?
It's just a higher grade, more accurate version.
Yeah.
The Rapsodo is great.
Does Rapsodo own TrackMan?
No.
Okay,
No,
they're separate altogether. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So TrackMan, Rapsodo, same concept, basically, but TrackMan's on a whole other level.
They're very similar. Rapsodo, I'm very familiar with when I was a college coach. That's where you're going to see, at the academies, at smaller colleges, even Division I colleges. They're easy to use. They get you exactly what you need to improve. If you're making $1 million decisions and drafting kids in the first round and evaluating free agency in the big leagues, you're more likely to use a TrackMan because it is basically as close to accurate as you can be with the numbers and the metrics. They're very, very similar, though.
So those type of devices, the thing that I think is one of the better things that we've ever purchased is a Hack Attack baseball machine. So it's not the big 2-wheel one. It's the wheels on the side, so you see the ball coming out for the velocity. Those we use every day, all the time.
So let me ask you guys this, and before we get into some of these measurables and metrics and we start talking about where we sit within this, I think that's a great point you bring up right there, Matt. And when you're looking at these things, Kevin, that's a big part of it is pitch recognition, spin recognition, correct? The eye and whatnot. And there's really not, how much is there as far as technology when you're looking at those things? Is there?
Well, yeah, it's all there.
It's in the same thing with the TrackMan as well. I honestly,
you're talking about spin rate?
No, I'm not talking about pitching. I'm talking about hitting. Somebody being able to see the ball, pitch recognition. Is there things that way that technology that can be used in those types of things, or is that
There's
not
a pitch recognition machine? I think.
Yes. There definitely
Mizzou
is.
has one.
We just incorporated this in our at our events. We have something called Visual Edge, and yes, that is something that now we train hitters how they track objects. Obviously, in this case, the ball, and how quick they react to picking up little sensors and whatnot. We can get a general idea, pretty good idea of how well a kid can see, and how that translates is fastball versus slider, fastball versus curveball, very minute things. And like Matt mentioned, the hack attacks are just a game changer for development. I can get you the metrics and I can tell them to you. Now you got to implement it, how to get better. And obviously a hack attack pitching machine is at the top of the food chart, top of the line for development to improve some of these numbers.
So I think that's an area, because I that's what I thought I'd seen you guys on the website, and you got the kids sitting at the laptops with laptops, correct? And they're doing those visual training tools, and you're tracking all that, correct?
Yes. Now, like one of the things that we've learned is most of the guys in the big leagues, there's always an outlier,
Sure.
But majority of professional hitters have elite vision. So a guy could run fast, a guy can have a big exit velo, but you do need to train your eyes as well, because you can't hit what you cannot see, or at least not very often.
It goes back to just the old saying, see the ball, hit the ball, right? I mean, but I know there's a lot more involved. And it's always was interesting to me and just in going back into old time baseball, I always heard it said that Babe Ruth could read a 78 record spinning. And so, I mean, You think about that. I know that, I'm an old guy here, so no, I don't know if anybody remembers what that looks like too much, but that's pretty fast. So there you go.
Yeah.
And then, so you're dealing with, can you see something coming at you that way? And I think that's an interesting thought process when you're talking about technology. But then how much does technology maybe, is it go too far? Is there a balance to those things, Matt?
Yes and yes. The big issue that outside of the fact that it might collect dust, is that you have too many people relying solely on technology to teach people how to hit. Because it's, hey, I'm going to use the blast motion. If you don't know what the numbers mean, there's no point even using it. So you have to know the device that you have, the device that you're using, and what the numbers actually mean, and then say, hey, I'm weak here. This is what I need to do to help in certain areas. And I don't think majority of the people know it or actually use it the way it's supposed to be used. They just think, oh, I have one. This would be cool to see what I hit. Oh, I have a exit velo of, or bat speed of whatever. My point of contact is here. Okay, well, how do you get it to here? How do you get this number from 80 to 91? That's the kicker with technology, is it needs to be applied correctly. And you need to learn, you actually need to know how to hit a baseball or train someone to hit a baseball correctly, or say, hey, you're wrong here. This is what we're going to do to fix it to get you from B to A.
Right.
So,
right.
And technology makes a lot of people think they know how to teach someone to hit a baseball. It's not easy to teach someone how to hit a baseball.
I agree with that. I agree.
Matt, I like to say, and I talk about this all the time with a lot of the guys, technology is great, but for about 95% of our development or improvement or whatever, the technology is for like the last 1% gain. You know what I mean? Like, so you need to get your work in. You need to, drills and just hard work, weight room. That's where you're going to find a 95+% of your physical improvements. And it's like the final piece. Like, you need to be close to an elite player, in my opinion, to get the full benefits of some of this technology. If you're using it as a training tool. Now, Blast Motion, TrackMan, they can give you some baseline metrics of where you stand. So it's two components of what they do. It can be a test of, hey, okay, you are right here right now. There's no, Coach Shadow doesn't hate me. This is like actual facts. Like, your exit velo says 68 miles per hour. I didn't say that. Coach Shadow didn't say that. That's actually what this TrackMan unit says. So there's zero debate about this. So that's one component of what these devices do. It kind of can aid a coach in that standpoint, where you're not the bad guy. You're literally reading this report. You hit the ball 68, or you hit the ball 90, and it's kind of like a third party resource for you.
It is, and then it's kind of like a radar gun. Hey, the radar gun must be broken, or the blast motion must be broken because the numbers aren't where they want them to be. That's the next line that comes out.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, that for me, it's for the numbers, but the hack attack, the weight room, those are the things that really, and those are just, you could take somebody from 1985 and say, hey, how did you become an elite hitter? And you could still apply it today.
I agree. Absolutely.
The difference is, in 1985, you can say, well, this guy's exit velo is 91. And today you can say, well, actually, no, it was 101, because the technology is so far advanced that you're getting more accurate numbers. It's kind of the old school saying, well, Bob Gibson threw 95. For all we know, he could have thrown 105.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because the technology today is so much better. But it goes back to Kevin's point. You still have to do all of the groundwork of the weight room, seeing velo to pick up bat speed. mean, it's like, say, hey, I want to run fast. Okay, so are you doing sprints or are you walking?
Right.
That's-
And what exercise are you doing to help those muscles get bigger and better to be able to help you?
yeah, you
propel
can't just
yourself?
say, well, I have all this technology now, I'm going to be better.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so let's get into this then. Okay. So we have this technology, we have these, we can see these measurables, they're more accurate. So you've got the player going in. Now it's a matter of, and I think to your point, Kevin, when you said, you know, it does help the coach. And this is where parents need to understand, pay attention to what the coaches are telling you. If you have this accurate information and the coach is telling you, look, with this number, it's Division II. You're in a Division II scope here. And the parent then looks at the coach and goes, well, I don't believe that. Well, believe what you want, but this is the reality of it. And I think that takes away the bad guy stuff if a parent will pay attention to what's being told them. If they understand these numbers.
Are we talking about hitting only still? Or in general?
We're talking about in general across the board. We're going to talk about hitting,
Because,
but it's true in that
I
respect.
agree. The only downside I would say to that is, like Kevin said, you get a 6'5", 150-pound.
That's projectable stuff. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. But still, they may be at a Division II place. That doesn't mean that kid couldn't go to UCM, right?
There's a lot of kids that played Division II, NAIA, JUCO,
And get drafted.
D3. Well, yeah, that could have gone to D1 or didn't go to D1 because maybe they didn't have the grades at the time.
Sure.
Maybe they knew they weren't going to play. Maybe they got overlooked and they actually got they grew, they got better in college. So, but either way.
And D1 doesn't necessarily mean better. I've coached at every level but Division III. I coached at Central Missouri. We were better than a lot of Division I's. I coached at junior college. We went undefeated versus Division II teams and also undefeated versus Division I team.
There's a reason why they didn't play you.
Yeah, so it can vary program to program. And just because it's D1 doesn't necessarily make it better. Now, Division I is at the top of the food chain. There's no denying that. And like Matt kind of alluded to, there's a lot of things that go into be Division I player other than just baseball. Like you have to have your academics in order. So sometimes when you're a junior college coach, you end up with some pretty talented guys that might be a little short academically. Or you sometimes get some guys because they're more pro baseball oriented and they're looking to stay eligible for the draft. So there's a variety of reasons why guys end up at certain levels.
But let's take numbers. Take the team that won the JUCO World Series last year, McLennan. That team, they're out of Texas. That team had 5. I know right now they have 6 arms that are 95. And you're talking about a junior college.
Right.
That team could beat a lot of Division I schools solely on their staff. But you could have D1 level numbers, major league level numbers, and be in a JUCO. Easily.
Right.
Most big junior colleges are either kids that didn't get into D1 because they didn't make it, or they're just like, I'm not doing school, I'm getting drafted.
And that's their choice. That's their thought process to it.
Or money for the parents. I mean, there's just so many attributes, but when somebody says, well, hey, I'm just going to go to a JUCO. Well, you're not just going to a JUCO because your numbers don't even apply to just going to a JUCO.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes with the numbers section of it and on the level of play that you're going to play. It's all perspective. It's like everything else.
And so let's just look at some numbers now. Let's finish up this conversation. Let's look at numbers. Kevin, you're dealing with this on this level. Matt, you've seen it because you've got kids at the highest level on down through in your program. When you're talking about D1 and you're talking, what are the basic is there 3-4 fundamental basic numbers that you were looking at?
Sure. I think I know what you're angling at. And obviously there's exceptions to every rule. So like what I'm going to tell you is a baseline rule of thumb. A Division I hitter, this is what I think you're looking for here, is going to have an exit velo of 90 plus. Now, the exception, like the number one player, the number one positional player in the state is Zack Stewart from Lebanon, a left-handed hitter. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. His exit velo is about 100 miles per hour. Oof. So that's the top of the food chain there in our state this year. Now, the exception to that would be, all right, there's a kid with an 82 mile per hour exit velo that's signed at some Division I. Well, what about him? I'm guessing my statement, hey, if you're a 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" runner, then the game changes. That number can come down. If you're an elite defensive catcher or an elite defensive shortstop, exceptions are going to be made. But if you're talking about what a Division I hitter looks like, that guy is going to have a 90 mile per hour exit velo, I can guarantee you. Now, he might not when he's a sophomore in high school, but when he gets to college, he's going to be with 90. And truthfully, once they get into college, those guys are going to be in the 95 and, that range and onwards. I did a scout day with Jeffco this fall. And this kid's an animal. It's Matt Sharp. He produced an exit velo at 107 plus and had like 5 or 6 readings above 104. So that's the type of deal. And, my favorite thing to tell high school guys is they play boys high school baseball and they play men's college baseball. So get into the weight room. So that's one thing they look at. Running speed is another that's an easy measurable. We measure in 60 yards. There's some debate there on how you want to measure because there's certain things that we're actually starting to add soon into our programs, like how fast do you run the 10 yard? How fast do you run the 30 and then the 60? So like we're going to eventually be able to measure that within the year all in one shot because there's a difference between being quick and fast. And, that 6'4" athlete that's more of a strider, doesn't get going as quick, where he might be a good center fielder, but doesn't have the first quick step of a guy that runs a 7'3" 60 that's a really good shortstop because his first 2 steps are incredible. But again, if you're looking for like, what does a Division I athlete look like? Most of these guys are going to be, in the upper 6s, 7.0s. Depends on position. Obviously, if you're a catcher or a first baseman and you're a big physical guy, and you're going to be in the 7.2 to 7.5 range. There aren't athletes at the Division I level that run in the 8s. I can tell you that. And those are numbers that decrease as you get older. So generally, you see a freshman that runs a 7.8, all is not lost. Hopefully you can work on getting that down to a 7.3, 7.2, 7.1. The fastest kid in our state is Jackson Carter, who we have on record running a 6'4". That's ridiculous. That's high end speed. That tool is fast enough to put him on the that's fast enough where pro scouts will come watch him. And then obviously the other big thing we're measuring for positional players is our throwing arms. How hard can you throw the ball? You have to be drafted in professional baseball. I used to talk about this all the time when I was coaching. You have to be able to throw. And then some kid's going to raise their hands. What about David Ortiz? Well, at one point, David Ortiz was a positional player. And then, you become one of the 15 best hitters in the world. And then, they're going to do the collective bargaining agreement and probably make it, the whole league. If you're one of the 15, 30 best hitters in the world, then yeah, okay, you don't need to be able to throw. But literally, you have to be one of the 30 best in the world. And
at hitting,
most likely,
right.
at hitting, and most likely that guy is going to be a guy in his 30s that is just not, able to move like he once did, that they want to keep in the lineup and keep in the big leagues for a couple extra years. So most 18, 19, 20, 22-year-old guys are not going to start out at DHs.
Very good. So is there another look here besides exit velo that we talk about hitting wise that people are looking at? I mean, we talk about bat speed, I understand, right? But what is
100%. So things that we measure, hand speed, bat speed, rotational acceleration. So that's how fast we can start our hands, because the swing decision is, I believe, like 0.4 of a second.
Right.
So it's how late in the game can you make that decision. Obviously, guys with really fast twitch muscles have an advantage, because I have an extra 10th or 100th or 1,000th or whatever it is to make that decision. That's a game changer. So we measure that. One that can be tied into coaching, something that is very fixable, is on-plane efficiency. So that kind of attack angle, that's something that, you can coach up. So if Matt has some kids in his facility with really steep angles on their swing, that's something we want to be on plane with the baseball. Some people get confused, in my opinion, on, well, yeah, you do have a slightly uppercut swing, but it is level with the baseball is the key. So people, there's always arguments, hitting guys, what type of swing do we want? Yeah, you want a level swing. What is level? Does that mean it's, flat as the table? No, not necessarily. There might be a slight upward trajectory to the swing that matches the plane of the baseball, because the baseball is not flat when it is thrown. So having a level swing can mean multiple different things, right? So you want to be on plane with the baseball. So we can measure that. Our TrackMan measures hard hit percentage. How close are you to your max peak velocity, line drive percentage, fly ball percentage, ground ball percentage? Matt could have a group of kids that he wants to have the ball only hit line drives and fly balls. And then he could have another group that you only want line drives and ground balls. It's who you are as a player, right? So if you're Jackson Carter and you're a 6'4" runner, for the most part, we want to be hitting balls on a line and hard on the ground. If you're Zack Stewart and you're 6'3", 225 pounds and can hit the ball 100 plus miles per hour, or then you might be a line drive to hit the ball in the air type guy. Most high school guys don't fit into that category yet. They always say the last thing to come is power. So developing a good swing, the line drive, middle approach, hard on the ground is a great way to go in high school and even college. And then you get into the big, professional baseball, then your body's fully developed. Then, yeah, they're going to teach you to lift the baseball because it makes sense statistically to hit the ball in the air because their defenders are that elite. In high school baseball, defense is not very elite, quite honestly. It's not the same as a big league defense. So you hitting the ball hard on a line and hard on the ground you're gonna hit for an extremely high average.
Exactly. I agree. So we're taking all that information. See, I think that's the great point. You put up all these numbers, and there's numbers that fit within a D1, a D2, and a D3. And if the player and the parent goes to PBR and gets this information, brings it back to their club, wherever they're at and whatnot, and says, here's the information, then you can take and get in the weight room. Okay, that's when you really need to start listening to the people that you've entrusted your player to that say, okay, we need to get in the weight room here. We need to work on this particular drill here. This is what's going to help this particular piece here, and start that process that helps those measurables go up, correct?
Yeah, and I agree with everything Kevin's saying. And to add to that, I think one of the most misconception stats is, or terms, is launch angle.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother conversation. But when you have a 12-year-old coach or dad or whomever saying, hey, you need a better launch angle. Your launch angle's bad. I'm sitting there thinking your kid's hitting the ball 55 miles per hour.
Right. Right.
You want a launch angle, you're going to hit fly balls and pop-ups all day, especially if you're the kid that can run a 6.5. Let's do line drives hard on the ground, and it's the old Major League movie game or story of Willie Mays Hayes, right?
Hit the ball on the ground,
Hit the ball
Willie.
on the ground and run. Or what's his name that played for the Reds? You can't steal first base, right? But
Right.
you can flat out fly.
Billy Hamilton.
Yeah, Billy Hamilton.
Yeah.
So the point is, we haven't touched on launch angle here yet. You notice Kevin hasn't even said launch angle one time. But that is for how many years did we go where everybody said launch angle with home runs? We're getting hit left and right in Major League Baseball. Well, if you're Matt Shark and you're 107, give me launch angle. You should never hit the baseball on the ground. You're hitting the ball 107 miles an hour. If you're hit on the ground, it's going to be hard. But he's not a fast kid. He's a gap-to-gap, hit the ball over the fence type of player. This other kid at Zumwalt East that we were discussing,
Jackson Carter,
is not.
Yeah.
You've got to hit the ball on the ground in the gap, and you have to run. What are you good at? And hopefully the numbers, based on what the conversation today is, helps you find who you are as a player.
And, to your
That's the kicker.
And to your point, we did a player spotlight with Jackson. And to his credit, that was one of the things he was working on in the offseason was his bunting. Because he knows he's that fast. I'm going to get on base. I'm going to be at second base. I'm bunting. I'm at second base, and I'm in scoring position. That's a smart kid. That's a kid understanding his abilities and his talents. And I think thinking through the game more instead of just looking at technology, I think is what needs to be talked about. Using technology as it was meant to be used. Understanding the measurables, understanding what they're for and what they are, and then allowing the coaches the understanding of how we coach a player, their physical talents, physical abilities, seeing these things and allowing the coaches to put those kids in the best possible position, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where it needs to be, personally. And if we can do this, I think, because I hear so much about Division I. Heck, man, don't worry about that right now. Focus on who you are. For instance, we had Josh Newell on Tuesday, and you're very familiar with Josh. You're familiar with Josh as well, Kevin. Had a great conversation with that young man. Really enjoyed it. Good kid. And understood who he is, understands who he is. But he's 6'2". He's slight still. I think he's got projectability as far as his frame still. And he knows he's still got a lot of work to do.
Well, here's an example, and he does, of a kid that put in the work, as Kevin knows, because Kevin did a lot of work with him. I've done a lot of work with him. He's going to Lindenwood. Lindenwood was, number one in the country at D2 for, 3 weeks or something last season? Yeah. They were top 10 all year. He had an opportunity to do Miami of Ohio, University of Cincinnati, and the offer was different than the Division II offer. But he liked what Lindenwood had to offer, and can't blame him.
Right.
So when him and I had the conversation, this is really hard to turn. You want to stay home, close to the family. So, but he had good numbers for D2, and he had decent numbers for D1, but it was more, for them, it was projectability of where is he going to be when he's a sophomore. Where Lindenwood, I think it was, hey, where's he going to be when he's a sophomore? But we think we can utilize him a lot sooner.
Right. Because he
So-
does have that. And, Kevin, we've talked about this with this young man. You're looking at he's playing shortstop in high school. As you said, by the end of the year, sometimes that's a little more wear and tear on the arm, correct?
Yeah. So Matt, John, he's a tremendous athlete, and he's also a high-end basketball player. Not for college, but for high school, he is. So here's a kid that's just probably the best athlete in the school, and if not the best, one of the best. He plays shortstop for his team every game that he doesn't pitch. He plays basketball. So, Lindenwood, in my opinion, has hit the jackpot here. The Division I saw this, and like Matt said, they saw him like, okay, we get him in a year where we get him in the weight room. He doesn't play shortstop anymore. His velocity is going to jump. I saw him multiple times last spring pitch in the low 80s and still pitch very good, but he's pitching in the low 80s. When I've seen him with my own eyes at some of our events or games in the summer, top out at 87 miles per hour. So and he loses weight. So by playing shortstop, non-stop. So there's things that kind of go into this, but it's, there are no guarantees in this thing. This business, but the probability of Josh being a high-end college pitcher and eventually being a 90-mile-per-hour arm are very high. The other great thing about Josh, the thing that sets him up for being highly successful, if and when he takes that big jump, this kid's already really good at what he is right now. So he's getting out. He knows how to get outs at 81 to 84. But how do you think he's going to be when he's 88 to 92, touch a 3? It's going to be otherworldly. So those are the guys to watch out for, is those late jump guys that are already good before they take that massive jump. And sometimes it works against the guys that are the big arms when they're young. They throw harder before anyone else, and because they don't know how to pitch yet. They just throw it by everybody. Eventually, guys learn. I mean, as Matt knows, guys in the big leagues can time up a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. 100. I remember being at a big league game when Kyle Farnsworth used to throw about 100 with the Cubs, and the Cardinals hit back-to-back homers off of them, and the fastballs were 99, 100, and 98. So eventually they will be able to time this up. So a guy like Josh, and you see this type of guy somewhat, he's special, but you see this type of thing happen where a kid's a great pitcher and then the velo pitches and he just takes another jump.
Very good. That's good stuff, guys.
Mr. Numbers guy.
Hey, and that's why I do say,
He has to be. I mean,
yeah,
that's because they got to give
what he's
everybody
doing.
what they want.
Prep Baseball Report, they do a great job. Gets the numbers, gets you back into with your club, like what Matt's talking about, and they're working with that. They can keep the measurables, but remember, don't just rely on technology, right? It's not just technology. It's a useful tool to help you grow as a player.
Correct. I would agree with you 100%.
That's where it should be. So, guys, thanks a lot for the conversation. Good stuff, as always.
Great. Thank you.
We'll be back with some more of this. We're going to keep talking numbers. We're going to keep talking this stuff. We're going to talk about some fielding, some hitting, or some pitching as well, because I think pitching is really the big one in that, as we were talking about with Josh. I think that'll be an interesting conversation. We'll get more of that, so make sure you stay tuned for upcoming episodes with these two gentlemen. I think it's going to be very good. So, guys, thanks a lot. Everybody, have a great day in the Lord. Remember, subscribe. Hit that subscribe. Comments. I keep missing that one. You got to hit me, Justin, right in the head. Boom. We needed comments. We need some comments. Throw some comments in the deal below. Agree, disagree, whatever
you
you got.
regret that comment.
No, I think it's good. We want to hear what people have to say. It's opinions, right?
Good thing we're recording this one. It's going to come back to you.
I'm okay with that. We'll do it. Comment below.
Welcome to it.
Comment below. It's great stuff. We'll see you next time. All you pitchers keep throwing strikes, and you hitters,
Hit them where they ain't.
good advice. See you next time, guys.